Hello. This is a short lecture where I'm going to try break down in as simple a terms as possible exactly what happens when we engage in strength training and get stronger. The title of the talk is How Do I Get Stronger? The Peasant's Guide to Underlying Science of How we Become More Awesome. I started off writing this as a bit of a joke to kind of make it as lowbrow as possible. But as the slides went on, it became a little bit more grinding when I started writing it out. So this isn't for simpletons. This is just me trying to lay it out as basically as possible for the layman, just what happens when we go through the process of getting stronger. So this is the first slide. On the first slide, we come across what I refer to as the strength pyramid. This is basically the factors that contribute to you ending up stronger. So, for instance, if you're a powerlifter, when you start squatting, benching, and deadlifting, these are the processes that end up in you from being a beginner to becoming an elite. So the first two founding blocks of the pyramid, these account for, and it's completely arbitrary, just threw a number out there, 80% of all the strength gains you'll ever get. On the left hand side we have the neural aspects, and on the right hand side we have the muscle gain, or what I like to refer to as the mechanical aspects. On the left hand side you'll see we have skill acquisition, so that's getting better and becoming more efficient at the skill of actually squatting, benching, deadlifting. This is a continual process and takes years and years to become a master at it. Mike Tushner has a pretty good video of him squatting something like 450 pounds, and then 5 or 6 years later him squatting 800 or 900 pounds. I can't remember the actual numbers, but it's within like a 5 to 6 year progress, and he talks about how he's become more efficient in his movements. And that's a big thing on the reactive training systems, is just the actual skill of lifting. He's a big proponent of just doing the full movements and doing them frequently, which I'm also a proponent of. Next are the neural factors, which we'll touch on in more. We'll touch on the actual what happens in the neural factors slightly later in the lecture. These are things like coordination, activation of larger muscle cells, the type 2 muscle fibers, innervating the type 2 motor neurons, and then genetics. So your actual ability, how many fast twitch muscle fibers you have in your muscle bellies, how easily you can innervate them, the coordination you possess. These all influence hugely how strong you can get in the end up. And then on the right hand side we have muscle gain. So this is down to the muscle gain will also be and also allude to genetics, your physiology, so the size of your muscle belly, the insertions of your muscle belly, the size and strength of your tendons, the heaviness of your bones, the length of your femur, the length of your spine, length of your arms. These will all play a huge factor in just how good of a strength athlete you can be. Some people, unfortunately, as much as they like to be, aren't built to squat. They aren't built to bench. Doesn't mean they can't get better at benching, can't get better at squatting, but they'll never reach the upper echelons of strength sports unless they do something drastic like become 170 kilos, like Brian Shaw, who's a big gangly guy but now is massive and world's strongest man. Endocrine factors, these refer to your natural levels of testosterone, your natural levels of insulin, your natural levels of growth hormone, and how responsive you are to exercise, and how quickly you get stronger or how quickly you put on muscle. And then genetics again play the same sort of factors. So that's the 80%. These are things you can influence, and these are the things if you can influence, the things you spend the most time trying to influence, because you'll get the biggest return from it. The next step of the tier, so again, left is neural, right is mechanical. On the left hand side we have what I've called neural optimization, so that's things like speed work, doing lots and lots of volume at 90% plus, really trying to hone your efficiency, trying to become just like that little bit better at the skill of squatting, just that little bit better at the skill of snatching, doing whatever you can just to become more efficient or better at firing your muscles in one go. And then in there comes psychology. So that's things like how good you are adhering to recovery principles, how good are you at turning up to training every day, how good are you at organising things around training, how good are you when you're training, do you have a good mindset, are you determined, do you give up easily, do you keep going, are you the sort of person that can push yourself to the limit in a set. All these things play a fairly large factor on where you're going to end up in strength training, because as you remove the physiological elements, the skill acquisition, muscle size, muscle strength, if you have two guys that are of equal ability, then the guy who's got the better mindset will usually win, or almost will always win. So that's like a 15% factor. And on the right hand side we have the mechanical aspects that are like 15%. So muscle gain optimization, basically this nutrition are pretty much put together, and sleep. All of these things come into muscle gain optimization. So do you eat the right foods? Do you have high enough protein intake? Do you have high enough calorie intake? Do you eat enough carbohydrates to have the energy to train well for a long period of time? Do you sleep well? This is a big one for me, and one I feel most people don't pay enough attention to. Do you get 8 hours of sleep every night? It has been shown that you can't catch up for lost sleep by oversleeping. So if you undersleep by 2 to 3 hours, it's been shown to have decrements on your ability to react to stimulus, your ability to perform maximal strength tasks, your ability to perform cardiovascular tasks. They're just not really as good as you can be if you don't get your 8 hours of sleep. So do you get 8 hours of sleep every night before training? If not, maybe you should. And then drugs. Are you willing to do what you need to do if you want to be the number one best bodybuilder in the world, as an example? Because there's a sport where if you're not willing to engage in that ethically murky issue, shall we say, then you're never going to be the best bodybuilder in the world. You will not be Mr. Olympia unless you're willing to do what you need to do. That's completely down to you as a person. I'll make no judgment calls on whether you do or not. I personally don't, because I'm happy enough not being in the top 5%. I just try to be the best I can be. But I make absolutely no judgment calls to people who want to, unless it's in a tested sport, in which case you're cheating. And then the top 5%. So this is, I just put down training like a fucking lunatic, trying new things, pushing your body to those limits, basically pushing yourself to the point of injury, time and time again. Training 6 days a week, 7 days a week, doing the Bulgarian system for weightlifting. The difference between like a national level weightlifter and an international level weightlifter is quite a lot to do with their mindset. Like a really good international weightlifter will engage in things like the Bulgarian system of training. Kakisvilis, not Kakisvilis, it's the wrong name. 93 won a gold in London. Fuck, can't remember his name. Kazakhstani lifter. I'm gonna look like a dickhead because I can't remember his name. But anyway, he trained like the Bulgarian system. He would train for like, if you watch his interviews on YouTube, he trained for like a year or 2 years, where it would just be intense training, competition lifts, front squats, and he would max every session. And he's, some would argue, the best 93 of all time. Some might even argue the best weightlifter of all time. Certainly the best weightlifter currently knocking about, completely undefeated in his class. So that's the sort of person who's willing to take it to that next step. Train 7 days a week, train twice a day, max out every session. If you're a power lifter, are you willing to do the sets that like what make you want to, like, you can't walk out the gym the next day because you're deadlifting in shit positions and you're going hard, you're squatting in shit positions, you're going hard, but you know it's going to end up that you're going to end up at the next meet lifting more than you wanted to do, that extra 10 pounds, that extra 5 kilos. Are you willing to put your body through that? If not, then you're probably not going to be at the top 5% of the game. You'll be somewhere down in the bottom 80%, 90%. That's fine. Regardless of your genetics, though, if you're not willing to push yourself like this in a sport like powerlifting, weightlifting, speed sports, maybe not necessarily speed sports, but if you're not willing to engage in training like that, then you're never going to be one of the top lifters. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide after much longer spent than I intended. This is muscle building physiology, the single IQ version. So this is again the grading of the peasant vibe. Okay, so this is just a basic schematic of how your body processes proteins. So in the middle here you've got muscle protein turnover. So you go breakdown and synthesis. For you to gain muscle, synthesis has to be larger than breakdown. So when you engage in muscle damaging activities like resistance training, you cause muscle damage that increases muscle protein turnover. So where you derive this protein from, if it's from your diet, if you have sufficient protein intake, it will result in a net muscle gain. If you don't intake enough protein, and we watched a lecture of one of the we were present in a lecture from one of the top guys in the field of protein dietary protein intake and dietary protein physiology. I'm really not putting the right words together here. This guy was top in his field for the involvement of protein and muscle growth, and he reckoned that the old adage of having 25 to 30 grams of protein every 3 hours was a big factor for putting on size. So like the wheel turns again, and the advice of eating every 3 hours may be relevant. Obviously the big ones are enough energy, so enough calorie input, actually putting in the training to be able to stimulate the muscle, cause the muscle damage, so you can adapt from it, become bigger, and having sufficient protein intake, and also possibly timing your protein intake so it's every 3 hours, or you've got enough in your system at all times to keep this process, to keep yourself in positive protein synthesis. Things like amino acids, the profiles that they should come in a complete amino acid profile. So whey protein's the best supplement basically for having a positive upregulation of protein synthesis. Leucine on its own, it turns on the pathways, but it doesn't result in as big a response as just whey on its own. So you can forget about BCAAs, you can forget about leucine. You want to lift weights and eat protein. Simple as that. Hit your calorie limits for your goals, and you'll be golden. So that was a pretty shitty explanation of muscle building physiology. I apologize to any of my sports science lecturers from the past for butchering it thus. The next one's the Neurology of Strength, put simply. So this gets hugely overcomplicated on the internet. People take the simple understanding that we have in sports science and over extrapolate it, so it's like almost unrecognizable to what we actually know. The neurology, the actual understanding of the neurology of strength and how we get stronger, the basics of it are fairly robust, but the nuance of it, to my knowledge anyway, it could be advancing, is pretty fundamental. So what we know is rate coding increases, so coordination, both inter-muscle coordination, so you fire all of your muscles at once within the muscle, intra-muscle coordination, so you fire in your quadricep, you can fire your 4 muscles correctly. Rate coding when you fire your muscles during the skills, so when a squat at the bottom, you fire your glutes at the right time, you fire your spinal erectors, keep your spine erect, basically the coordination of the movement. And then you inhibit things like the Golgi tendon, which stops you producing force too fast. You inhibit the action of muscle spindles, which stop you changing the length of muscle too fast, and you become better at recruiting the higher threshold motor units. So if you look at this schematic here, we've got this is called the size principle. So at the bottom, at the left, furthest left of this schematic, we have the small twitch muscle fibers, or the slow twitch muscle fibers. These are the smallest motor units and they're also the weakest muscle fibers in your body. These are used for postural things. They're also used in cardiac muscle. Your heart's 100% slow twitch muscle fiber. They have the ability to go for hours on end and not fatigue, but their force production is very limited. And as we go to the right here, the motor units become bigger, and the muscle cells themselves become bigger. To the very right hand side, this is the type 2X muscle fiber. This is the fastest twitch. It can innervate, the motor unit can innervate the largest amount of muscle fibers. So on the left hand side, let's say that's 100 muscle fibers, and on the right hand side, let's say this is 100,000 muscle fibers, and it fires them all synchronously. You get one bang out of them, and then these guys only go for 2 or 3 seconds. They're called the couch potato fibers because they when you train a lot of volume, you actually switch to a slower twitch kind of fiber. It's still fast twitch muscle fiber, still type 2B, but type 2X is the kind of muscle fibers you get when you taper. So when you actually take some time off, your type 2B revert to type 2X, which is the fastest which is the fastest and highest force producing motor unit and muscle fiber. Again, I probably got some things wrong in that explanation, but it's about 80% correct. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding of what happens as far as neurology goes. As far as the actual intricacy of how the skills are learned and how your body and how your neural system and mind turn that skill into an action, that's a ridiculously complex topic, and one I'm not entirely well read in, so I won't bore you with trying to explain it, because I do a shit job, even worse job than I've done thus far. So just a little slide to sum up what we talked about. These are the things that matter when getting stronger. So if you only take attention to these 6 points, you're pretty much going to be spot on. So at the bottom, some of these things have been taken from a meta-analysis that was published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research in 2003. The link's at the bottom. You can type it in, and that's the PDF, so you can look at it. Basically, they looked at all the data to that point and came up with some recommendations for strength training. So meaningful volume. So anything over 80%. 80% seems to be the optimal percentage to get stronger at. 80 to 85% was recommended by Chinese coach in an interview that I've read. So it's kind of what I base my current squat program on. But basically, the more volume you can put in an 80% plus range, the stronger you're going to get. So that's a key marker thing. That's something to keep in your head all of the time. How much volume am I doing, and is it meaningful volume? Am I trying hard on the lift? Am I moving, if my squat 200, am I moving 160 plus on a regular basis through a lot of volume? If you're not, then your program could be better probably. Flexibility and movement quality. This is more for an injury prevention standpoint, and especially for you beginners out there. It's important to be able to perform squats, deadlifts, snatches, presses, bench presses with optimal form, have enough flexibility through the joints, tendons and muscles to actually hit good positions. It will make life a lot easier. If you don't currently have the flexibility, mobility to achieve these things, I advise strongly that you stretch, because it's very useful. I certainly could be better at it, and I'm trying to get better at it. Frequency, again, in that meta-analysis, they showed that if the lift was trained 2 to 3 times a week, that people got stronger at it. More advanced trainees got stronger at it. Beginners were recommended 1 to 2 times a week. So for the more advanced trainees, 2 to 3 times a week seems to be about optimal, at least based off the research we have. Recovery, capital letters, because this is all that matters. Get enough sleep, eat enough calories, get enough protein. You do those 3 things, you pretty much recover as well as you can, outside of taking things that you shouldn't be taking, you naughty boy. Get your psychology right. This is one that can be developed, and not a lot of people talk about developing it. Have purpose. Know what you're doing. I'm going to squat 250 kilos. That's my purpose. I'm going to do it. I don't give a fuck what anyone else says. I'm doing it. Have the drive to do that. You're going to do whatever you can. You'll get up in the morning, you'll squat for 2 hours, 4 days a week, because you want to squat 250. Don't give a fuck what anyone else says. That's what I'm doing. That's how I'm doing. That's how I'm going to do it. Have the desire to do it. You want to do it. If you want to do things, you will do much better at it. Sort of people that join a gym to lose weight in brackets and leave in 2 months, didn't want to lose weight, they just felt guilty. The guys that wanted to lose weight, there's the guys that join the gym and stay at the gym for life and become fitness models, become in good shape. The guys on bodybuilding.com who have like the abs and all the rest of it. They're the guys who they have the desire to look like that, so that's how they end up looking like that. And they do what they have to because they've got the drive, they have a purpose, they have the drive to do it, and more importantly than those two things, they have the desire to do it. And then finally, get your ass to the gym, because you're not going to get stronger watching videos on YouTube as much as it would make life easier. Okay, that concludes this Helter Skelter presentation on the science of how we get stronger. Maybe not as scientific as it could have been, but hopefully it's been useful for anyone who's watched it. Again, we got the website www.castironsstrength.com. Get us on there. We got forums, we got articles. We're trying to grow the site as we go, produce meaningful content and make it a worthwhile place to be on the internet. So get yourself over there, join the forum, start a training log, start interacting with some more lifters. This is Mark Keys of Cast Iron Strength, signing off. Goodbye.